in specifically in the area of recruitment and providing recruiters to organizations in terms of third party. Now, one of the things I heard a lot around large corporates and they moving this needle around the third party staffing, but I personally believe I work with a lot of startups and the mid-segment organizations, the SMEs. Today the challenge is when youngsters are getting out there, the whole context of flexible workforce has changed significantly for them. So whether you're talking about tech startups, whether you're talking about small manufacturing units coming up, I think people are looking at flexibility at that level. Yes, there is that social stigma, but I think, I personally believe, and I would like to hear your views, majority of the employment generation is happening at the small scale, the SME, the startups and things like that. Where do you and what do you guys see in terms of the whole thing moving forward? We saw those statistics there, but I think most of the numbers that are going to come into the fold are going to be in this whole SME, small scale industry and things like that. So.
Thanks. Pramod, would you like to take it? You work with entrepreneurs quite a bit. Would you?
I think I'll take it briefly because I suspect there are more other people here who may be better at this. They do create jobs, and a lot of the jobs that are being created, you're right, are going in that direction. Nevertheless, I think because of the lack of information, lack of networks, lack of job networks, it is very hard, and so all of them are relying on informal methods to recruit, and it is an endemic issue. It is also an endemic issue because as you go out of the big cities into the smaller cities, the issue becomes far worse. I think you'll talk about it in the healthcare sector. It's impossible to get people going out to these places. Yeah. So there's a whole range of issues here which makes it quite hard in the in the small to medium scale sector. Having said that, I would throw out a few things. One is there are new companies being built now which are actually building those networks and that you can tap into, and therefore being able to use those is important. Two, as skilled and trained providers move out into the rural areas, we're a very small company. I've got something called the Skills Academy we're building. It's very small today. But we're already working in villages across 5-6 states. There are many bigger organizations than us that you could go to or link up with who would provide those capabilities. And then lastly, the most interesting point to me has been that, and we're working with JPAL. I don't know how many of you know JPAL, and it's the Poverty Action Lab out of MIT and Abhijit Banerjee. What is interesting is that the reasons people take jobs or don't take jobs are things we don't really understand today. And I think getting a real understanding of what is attractive to people in a rural environment, given the networks they work with, the influences they have, the experiences they have, what do their parents say, what do their teachers say, what does the panchayat head say, understanding those becomes even more important, particularly as you go out of town. I'm sure there's many more ideas here.
Yeah. I think when we look at our model in India, going to rural areas and enabling, empowering them to create jobs. We are working in the reverse direction. We are asking them to come to metros and create problems on this side of overload. China is working on the other model. So that is one learning perhaps for us to look at as a country. Second, as say, for example, in case of Maruti, when we look at the auto component industry over the last 31 years, so we have created employability all across north, south, east, west, maybe a little less in east, but west, south, and north has been heavily coming in. Because in our case, it is first the tier 1 vendors, then tier 2 vendors, and then tier 3 vendors, which are really small scale people coming in 20, 30, 40, 50 people. Third perspective is that to a great extent, I talked of scaling. We are doing 30 ITIs by us, managing the whole show and bringing talent out so that they are really getting into an employable platform. And we are planning to move into 50. So 50 ITIs we'll manage over the next 1 or 2 years, 30 to 50. And then we'll also look at creating the instructor capability. So we'll be managing 2 teachers training institutes of government. We'll take from them and we'll manage. Now this template will need replication. Now connect with staffing. Connect with staffing is a professional organization which owns and engages this manpower, and then this can be used as flexi manpower.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's the kind of larger net I see
Yeah.
for the chain to work.
Okay. Can I add just one more perspective? You're absolutely right. If I can hazard a guess, it's about, could be 80-20. 80% would be in the workforce, not in the staff kind of a category. I think it's to do with our education system also. So it's a much larger thing. The advent of all these mushrooming private universities, so the numbers are there, but the quality isn't there. So if the quality can be enhanced, that's why we are talking about training. So if the federation can talk about, or let's say they can enhance the skill level of these people, we are talking engineers, we are talking management graduates, I think the employability in that area would also improve.
Yeah.
So the large organizations hesitate to take people on those roles because people who are good, they're all anyways taken from the campus. So people from all these mushrooming universities, quality is a little bit suspect. So I think federation, if they can join hands and do something about it, then that level also will grow, definitely.
I feel you touched a very right point, because big organizations desire flexibility for different reasons. It's the small SMEs and startups who have need for flexibility as a necessity. They can't afford to take a risk because they do not know how the business will shape up. Big organizations want it because they can increase productivity, they can stretch the rupee faster and better. So coming to that, if you look at the pattern of requirement, it is so uncertain that they need a flexi workforce that they can reduce if the business doesn't do well or takes time to do well. But there's a catch-22 because the quality of people who join through this route is not good. So in CII, we've got about 187 member companies who have adopted ITIs. One of the things that is required to be done, and is being done in some subtle way, not too big way, is that you got to have this temp pool with high skills.
Yeah.
And that can be only done at a grassroots level, ITIs, RECs. Make sure that their skill set is not compromised just because they are in a temp pool for SMEs. And what you're touching upon is the point where we have to look at the industry academia interface of how to improve the skill of the pool which can be used as temp pool by the SMEs rather than commit one time to long-term employment. Yeah. And there is a bit of a cycle here where academics will have to play a role of increasing the pool. Organizations will have to invest through CSR now, through training skills. And ITIs, etc., which are being adopted by 187 member companies in CII, promote, Urban 87 now has gone up, I think. Now, those are things that will make a direct impact rather than theoretical impact. And that is where SMEs will have to really tap those that, okay, I want X number of people, but of good quality because I cannot commit, I'll not throw them out. Or I cannot afford to commit for long term, but I do need quality. And if they're good quality, the business will pick up and that temporary will become less temporary and may lead to a much longer association.
Yeah. Actually, on that, one last thought. This plays a very key role in increasing the penetration of flexibility to higher levels. If you need a CTO or a CIO whom you cannot afford on a full-time basis, you need on a flexible basis, you'll get them on a part-time. And because they don't have the brand awareness, all the federation members here can help in finding such talent, advisory groups, board members, or at various levels. It's a very good point. It's pivotal.
Can I add one afterthought? I worked with Shell, and the industry like oil and gas, skill set is very high in some particular, like seismologist or underwater welding, etc. Looking at the North Sea and also the Brunei belt, which was my territory, we would have specialists come and say, I don't want to work only for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are moving into a area or terrain where multiple employers will be the norm of tomorrow. Yeah. Today we are used to having one employer, loyalty, long term, and what Siddiqui Bhai mentioned that 40 years of association, this is all going to be passé. It's going to be skill, sell when you need, buy when you want, and I know it sounds very transactional, but that's what industry is likely to benefit, and those with skill will have more demand than those who are looking for jobs.
Yeah. Good. Any other question? Yeah, Yadavji. Yeah.
Is there someone else?
Here, right up in the front. Can we? I'll come back to you in a bit. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, thank you so much for giving a presentation in the context of staffing or contracting. All of you represent very large organizations. In the context of contracting, there are two issues. One, a company like us, Flexi Staffing, which we give people directly on a contract basis, where we recruit, replace, and we take care of the compliances and payrolling. The other context where you take the people also on the job contracting. We personally feel that job contracting is going to the informal sectors, where the company which gives the job contracting probably closes the eyes, what happens to their minimum wages, what happens to the compliances. So how do you feel about this job contracting versus the contracting?
Yeah.
I think there is an element of, I'll say, ambiguity and vagueness. I fully acknowledge what you are saying. But you'll also have to look at, there's also an element of capability and competence in job contract issues. Job contract issues are offered for, say, a particular specific skilled job like paint shop in automotive industry, where a specific element of competence is also required. And in terms of our country, I think this transition of expertise with a professional agency cover may take a little roadmap or blueprint, may not happen immediately. That's the kind of reality. Because in Maruti, for example, we have huge amount of job contract activity also, which is to some extent also part of vendors. They come and do it for Maruti, in Maruti. But it is also sometimes required, say for example, a very mundane example is, paint shop will require a regular cleaning for correct painting of cars. And cleaning is a non-value added function, but it's a very, very expertise-driven kind of a activity. You and I can't handle it, but there are certain people who know how to handle it. And you are absolutely right that I'm not too sure that agency, whether they will be taking care of the Provident Fund and all the social security benefits of this manpower which is involved in that. But at the same time, there's another example which is also coming in with the context question you asked there, that somewhere we need to pave the way with win-win situations. In Maruti's case, 7 years back, we went into rural. Our plan was to bring in the rural marketing concept. We said we cannot do it, so we will pick up people from rural and train them. Today we have 14,000 rural development sales executives. They contribute to 27% of the national sales annually for Maruti. And all other automotive companies are following this. What Maruti has been doing in villages, let us also try to cut, copy and paste. Yeah. Somewhere, these positive avenues also we'll have to find to increase employability for the country also. But if it can come through temp method or professional methods or agencies, I think that is the roadmap the country should look at.
Great. You have something else to say, Pramod? Yeah, okay.
I think this is a big issue. I think you're raising the right point. At the same time, though, there are many examples of this, how this has been solved around the world. So if you look at, retailers and brand companies, they have an obligation to make sure that the vendors they use comply with local laws, minimum wage conditions, etc., etc. So Nike cannot go to Bangladesh or India and hire people or child labor or labor at certain rates without actually bringing focus to it. We need the same thing. A lot of this has been done by some NGOs. I'm not recommending necessarily we go that route, but they look into these issues. Hello? Thank you. They look into these issues. And similarly, I think we as employers have an onus of saying any subcontractor we use, we often, I'm sure in the agreements that they give, they say, will you comply with all laws, all agreements, etc., etc. Everybody signs them, and then nobody looks at them. But I think we should look at them and enforce it. What happens is we don't enforce it. But the way to do this is laid out around the world because